Welcome back to Vintage Time, where we don't just revisit movies, we uncover the ones time tried to hide. Today's journey takes us deep into 1965, a year that didn't just follow trends, it quietly broke them. While mainstream cinema played it safe, a strange, bold wave of films emerged on the edges. Unpredictable stories, daring characters, and moments so unusual, they stayed buried for decades. These aren't the films you hear about every day. These are the ones that feel like secrets, waiting for the right viewer to discover them. So if you're ready to step off the beaten path and into something wild, something weird, and completely unforgettable, you're exactly where you need to be. And before we begin, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a quick done in the comments, because the deeper we go, the stranger it gets. The Nanny, 1965. What if the person meant to protect you is the one you fear the most? The Nanny, 1965, doesn't rush to scare you. It doesn't rely on loud moments or sudden shocks. Instead, it does something far more unsettling. It quietly plants doubt and lets it grow. At the center of the story is a young boy named Joey, recently returned home after spending time in an institution. His family hopes this is a fresh start, a chance to rebuild what was broken. Waiting for him is the woman who once cared for him like a second mother, the nanny. Calm, composed, and seemingly devoted. But something isn't right. Joey refuses to eat her food. He avoids her presence. Treats her the way someone watches danger. And no one understands why. To everyone else, she is perfect. Gentle voice, kind smile, controlled demeanor. The kind of person you'd trust without question. Which makes Joey's fear feel almost irrational, almost imagined. But the film slowly begins to shift that perception. What makes The Nanny so powerful is its restraint. It doesn't reveal its hand too early. Instead, it lets you sit in uncertainty. Is Joey traumatized? Is his mind playing tricks on him? Or is he the only one seeing something everyone else refuses to acknowledge? Every scene feels quiet, but heavy. Conversations carry tension beneath polite words. Glances linger just a little too long. Silence becomes louder than dialogue. And then there's the performance, cold, controlled, and deeply layered. The kind that doesn't scream danger, but suggests it in ways that make your skin crawl. As the story unfolds, truths begin to surface, but not in the way you expect. There's no clear line between innocence and guilt. No easy answers. Just a slow unraveling of trust itself. Because sometimes the most terrifying thing isn't knowing the truth. It's realizing you've been ignoring it all along. Dr. Terror's House of Horrors, 1965. Step inside, if you dare. But be warned, once the stories begin, there's no walking away unchanged. Dr. Terror's House of Horrors, 1965, isn't just one story. It's 5. And each one feels like a doorway into something darker, stranger, and deeply unpredictable. It all begins on a train. A group of strangers, thrown together by chance, sharing a quiet journey. Ordinary people, ordinary conversation, until a mysterious man enters their compartment. Confident. Watching. He introduces himself as Dr. Terror. And then, without hesitation, he offers something no one expects. He will read their futures. At first, it feels like a harmless game. Cards laid out. Curious glances exchanged. But as each reading begins, the tone shifts. What starts as curiosity quickly turns into unease. Because the futures he reveals aren't hopeful. They're horrifying. Each story unfolds like a separate nightmare, ranging from cursed objects and creeping plants to vengeance that refuses to stay buried. And yet, despite their differences, they all share something in common. A sense of inevitability. No matter what choices are made, the outcome feels sealed. What makes this film stand out isn't just the horror, it's the structure. The way it moves from one story to another, each with its own mood, its own fear, its own unsettling twist. You're never fully settled, never comfortable. Just when you think you understand the pattern, it shifts again. And at the center of it all is Dr. Terror himself. Unshaken. Almost amused. As if he already knows how everything will end. The film doesn't rely on heavy effects or modern scares. Instead, it leans into atmosphere, into tension, into the unknown, into the quiet realization that some things can't be avoided. Because the real question isn't whether the future can be predicted. It's whether it can ever be escaped. Faster, Pussycat. Kill. 1965. What happens when chaos doesn't creep in slowly, but crashes into your world at full speed? Faster, Pussycat. Kill. 1965 doesn't wait. It explodes onto the screen with raw energy, unapologetic attitude, and a kind of fearless rebellion that still feels shocking even today. At the center of this storm are three women, wild, unpredictable, and completely in control. Led by the fierce and magnetic Varla, they aren't just characters, they're forces. From the very first moment, you realize this isn't going to be a traditional story. There are no rules here. No limits. What starts as a chance encounter in the desert quickly spirals into violence, manipulation, and a dangerous game of power. These women don't just survive in a harsh world, they dominate it. Every move they make is calculated, every word sharp, every action charged with intensity. But beneath the chaos lies something deeper. This isn't just about rebellion, it's about control. About flipping expectations. In a time when cinema often placed women in passive roles, this film does the exact opposite. It hands them the power, and watches what happens when they refuse to give it back. The pacing is relentless. Conversations feel like confrontations. Silence feels like a threat. And the desert setting only amplifies the isolation. There's nowhere to run, nowhere to hide, and no one coming to save you. What makes Faster, Pussycat? Kill. Unforgettable is its attitude. It doesn't try to be safe. It doesn't soften its edges. It leans fully into its boldness, creating something that feels raw, dangerous, and strangely hypnotic. And by the time it's over, one thing becomes clear. This wasn't just a story about survival. It was about dominance. And in this world, only the strongest get to decide how it ends. Color Me Blood Red, 1965. How far would you go for perfection? Color Me Blood Red, 1965, takes a simple idea, art, and twists it into something deeply disturbing. This isn't a story about creativity. It's about obsession, about the moment passion crosses the line and becomes something dangerous. At the center is an artist struggling to find his voice. His work lacks impact. His colors feel lifeless. And in a world where attention is everything, he's fading into irrelevance. Until one accident changes everything. A single moment. A drop of blood. And suddenly his art comes alive. The color is different. Richer. It grabs attention in a way nothing else ever has. For the first time, people notice him. They react. They feel something. And that feeling becomes addictive. What starts as a discovery quickly turns into a need. Because once you've tasted recognition, going back to being invisible isn't an option. The film slowly descends into madness. Each new painting demands more. Each success pushes him further. And the line between artist and monster begins to blur. There's something deeply unsettling about how quietly it all happens. No sudden transformation. No dramatic shift. Just a gradual surrender to obsession. And that's what makes it so effective. Because it forces you to ask a question that lingers long after the film ends. Is it the art that matters, or the price paid to create it? The world praises the masterpiece. It celebrates the genius. But it rarely looks at what was sacrificed to make it real. Sometimes, the truth behind the canvas is darker than anyone is willing to see. Harlow, 1965. What happens when fame becomes a cage, and the spotlight slowly starts to burn? Harlow, 1965, isn't just a film, it's a haunting glimpse into the illusion of Hollywood glamour. At its center is Jean Harlow, the platinum blonde icon whose beauty lit up the silver screen, but behind that glow was a life far more complicated than anyone wanted to see. From the outside, everything looks perfect. The fame, the attention, the rise to stardom. It feels like a dream unfolding exactly the way it should. But as the story quietly unfolds, that dream begins to crack. The industry that once celebrated her starts tightening its grip. every decision controlled, every image crafted, every moment watched. What makes Harlow so fascinating isn't just the story, it's the atmosphere. There's a strange, almost unsettling calm to it. No loud breakdowns, no exaggerated drama. Just a slow, creeping realization that something isn't right. That behind the elegance and luxury, there's pressure building. And at the center of it all is a woman trying to hold on to herself in a world that profits from her losing it. The film doesn't rush. It lets you sit with the discomfort. The silence speaks louder than words, and the emotional weight builds in ways you don't expect. You start to notice the small things, the forced smiles, the controlled conversations, the moments where freedom feels just out of reach. It's not just a story about fame. It's about identity. About what happens when the world decides who you are, before you even get the chance to. And by the time it ends, one question lingers quietly in your mind. Was she ever truly in control, or was the role already written for her? Mirage, 1965. Imagine waking up in a world where nothing makes sense, and the one thing you've lost is the only thing that could save you, your memory. Mirage, 1965, drops you straight into confusion, and it never lets go. It begins with something simple, almost ordinary. A sudden blackout in a towering New York skyscraper. Lights out. Elevators frozen. Silence. But when the lights return, everything has changed. A man walks out, but he's no longer the same. Because he doesn't remember who he is. What follows isn't just a mystery, it's a psychological maze. The deeper he goes searching for answers, the more dangerous the world around him becomes. People seem to know him, but not in a way that feels safe. Questions lead to more questions. Faces appear, disappear. Truth feels just out of reach. And the most unsettling part? You begin to question everything alongside him. Is he a victim, or something far more dangerous? The film builds tension in a way that feels almost invisible. No explosive action, no over-the-top twists. Just a slow tightening of reality itself. Every conversation feels loaded. Every clue feels incomplete. And every step forward feels like stepping deeper into something you might not escape. There's a cold, almost clinical tone to Mirage that makes it stand out. It doesn't try to comfort you. It doesn't guide you. It simply places you inside the confusion and lets it grow. And as the pieces slowly start to come together, the truth doesn't feel relieving. It feels unsettling. Because sometimes, forgetting who you are isn't the real problem. It's remembering. Die Monster, that 1965. What if the closer you get to the truth, the more reality itself begins to fall apart? Die Monster, that 1965, pulls you into a place that feels wrong from the moment you arrive. A quiet countryside, a distant mansion, and an atmosphere so heavy, it's almost suffocating. It begins with a simple visit. A man travels to meet his girlfriend's family. Nothing unusual, nothing threatening. But as he approaches the estate, something feels off. The land itself looks sick. Crops are dying. Colors seem faded, unnatural. Even the air feels contaminated. And then there's the house. Isolated. Watching. Inside, he meets the family, particularly the father, a man confined to a wheelchair, yet somehow more powerful than anyone else in the room. His presence alone shifts the tone. Polite on the surface, but hiding something deeply unsettling underneath. As questions begin to surface, so do the cracks in reality. Strange mutations. Unexplainable decay. Hints of something unnatural spreading through the land, and possibly the people themselves. The deeper he investigates, the more disturbing the truth becomes. This isn't just a haunted house story. It's something darker. Something rooted in forbidden knowledge and consequences that were never meant to be faced. What makes Die Monster, Die, so gripping is its atmosphere. It doesn't overwhelm you with constant horror. Instead, it builds slowly, scene by scene, until the world itself starts to feel unstable. Colors become symbols. Shadows feel alive. And nothing looks the way it should. And at the center of it all is a terrifying idea. What happens when humans try to control forces they were never meant to understand? Because once that line is crossed, There's no going back. Motorcycle, 1965. What if the road you're driving on slowly turns into a nightmare you can't escape? Motorcycle, 1965, takes something familiar, the open road, and transforms it into a place of fear, tension, and unpredictable danger. It begins in a quiet rural setting. Peaceful. Still, the kind of place where nothing ever seems to happen. But that calm doesn't last long. Because out of nowhere, they arrive. A gang of bikers. Loud, aggressive, and completely unrestrained. They don't follow rules. They don't respect boundaries. And once they enter this quiet world, everything changes. What makes the film so unsettling isn't just their presence, it's their unpredictability. There's no logic to their actions, no clear motive that makes things easier to understand. Just chaos. Pure, uncontrolled chaos. As tensions rise, the story begins to shift from disturbance to survival. The people caught in their path aren't prepared for this kind of violence. They don't know how to respond. And that uncertainty creates a constant sense of unease. But Motorcycle isn't just about fear, it's about confrontation. As the film unfolds, the line between victim and resistance starts to blur. Characters who once felt powerless begin to push back. And when that shift happens, the tone changes completely. Because now it's no longer just about enduring the chaos. It's about fighting it. The pacing builds steadily, layering tension with every scene. There's a rawness to it, a sense that anything could happen at any moment. No safety net. No predictable outcome. And by the end, you're left with a lingering question. When violence enters your world without warning, do you run from it? Or do you become something strong enough to face it? That darn cat. 1965. What if the key to solving a crime wasn't a detective, a witness, or a clue, but a cat who refuses to follow any rules? That darn cat. 1965 starts off light, almost playful. A quiet suburban world. A curious young woman named Patty, full of energy and just the right amount of mischief. And then there's her cat, independent, unpredictable, and completely uninterested in doing what anyone expects. At first, everything feels simple. Almost too simple. Until one small detail changes everything. A wristwatch. A message. Something hidden in plain sight that shouldn't be there. And suddenly, what seemed like an ordinary day turns into something much bigger. What follows is a strange, charming mix of mystery and chaos. Patty becomes convinced that her cat has unknowingly stumbled into something serious, something dangerous. But convincing anyone else? That's where things get complicated. Because how do you explain that a cat might be the only link to a possible crime? As the story unfolds, the film leans into its unpredictability. The investigation doesn't move in straight lines. It jumps, twists, and sometimes feels completely out of control, just like the cat at the center of it all. And that's what makes it so enjoyable. It doesn't try to be overly serious. It embraces the absurdity, the humor, and the idea that sometimes the biggest breakthroughs come from the most unexpected places. But beneath the lighthearted tone, there's still tension. A quiet sense that something real is at stake. That behind the playful chase, there's a truth waiting to be uncovered. And as everything builds toward its conclusion, one thing becomes clear. Sometimes the smartest mind in the room isn't even human. The Hallelujah Trail, 1965. What happens when something as simple as a supply delivery turns into complete and unstoppable chaos? The Hallelujah Trail, 1965, takes a basic idea and stretches it into a wild, unpredictable journey filled with misunderstandings, ambition, and just the right amount of madness. It all begins with a shipment, something valuable, something everyone wants. But this isn't just any cargo. It's whiskey. And in a time and place where demand is high and supply is rare, that makes it more powerful than gold. What should have been a straightforward delivery quickly spirals into a full-scale chase. Different groups, different motives. Soldiers trying to maintain order. Settlers desperate for relief. Opportunists looking to take advantage. And all of them focused on one thing, getting their hands on that shipment. What makes the Hallelujah Trail stand out is its scale. The story keeps expanding, pulling in more characters, more conflicts, and more unexpected twists. Every scene adds another layer of chaos, another complication that pushes the journey further off course. And yet, despite all the movement, all the action, there's a rhythm to it. A strange balance between control and disorder. You feel like everything is about to collapse at any moment, but somehow, it keeps going. The film leans heavily into its humor, but it's not just about laughs. It's about how quickly situations can spiral when too many people want the same thing, and no one is willing to step back. Because once momentum builds, stopping it becomes impossible. And by the time the journey reaches its end, it's no longer just about the destination. It's about everything that was lost, gained, and completely derailed along the way. Because sometimes the real story isn't what you set out to do. It's the chaos you create trying to get there. And that wraps up our journey through 10 wild and weird films from 1965, stories that didn't follow the rules, didn't chase the spotlight, and yet managed to leave a lasting mark in their own strange, unforgettable ways. Now we want to hear from you. Which of these films surprised you the most? And which ones are you adding to your watch list? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one. And if you enjoyed stepping off the beaten path with us today, don't forget to subscribe to Vintage Time for more hidden gems, forgotten classics, and cinematic journeys you won't find anywhere else. Until next time, keep exploring, keep watching, and keep discovering the stories most people miss.